I first heard about the Dybbuk Box on a rainy evening. The storm outside rattled my windows. Lightning lit up my room for a split second. And that was when I read the story of a small, unassuming wooden box that was said to hold a demon. They called it a Dybbuk, a restless, malicious spirit. The kind of thing that doesn't just haunt you, it follows you. It burrows into your dreams. It whispers when you are alone. The box was said to be made of walnut wood, carved by hand, with strange markings inside. It wasn't beautiful. It wasn't even valuable. But people avoided it as if it carried a disease, because the truth was worse than a disease. It carried a curse. The story began decades ago. During World War II, a woman from Poland claimed she had captured a spirit inside that box. Her family called it the Dybbuk Box. It was sealed during a ritual with prayers in Hebrew and drops of blood mixed into the wood's grain. The woman swore to her children, "Never open it, never sell it. If you disturb it, the Dybbuk will be free, and it will never let you rest." For years, the box disappeared. Some said it was buried. Others whispered it was hidden in a temple that no longer exists. But one day, decades later, it showed up again, at a small estate auction in Oregon. That's where the first modern story begins. Kevin Manis, a small shop owner, attended the auction. He was looking for vintage items to resell. The room was filled with dusty furniture, jewelry, and random trinkets. Then, in the corner, under a stained white sheet, he found the box. It looked ordinary, a cabinet-sized wine box with a tiny door. But the moment he touched it, a chill ran through his arm. He thought maybe it was just the cold wood. He was wrong. When he asked the auctioneer about it, the man's face changed. He lowered his voice. "You don't want that." Kevin laughed, thinking the man was joking, but the auctioneer shook his head. He explained that the box belonged to an elderly woman who had recently passed away. In her will, she had made one demand. No one must ever open the box. If you must keep it, guard it, but do not try to understand it. Kevin, of course, ignored the warning. Curiosity is a dangerous thing. He bought it for $60 and brought it back to his shop. The first night it sat in the shop, everything went wrong. The lights flickered. The security cameras glitched. The smell of ammonia filled the air, even though no chemicals were near. Kevin thought maybe it was a coincidence, but then he had the dream. He described it later. "In my dream, I'm standing in the dark. A woman with sunken eyes is there. She's not breathing. She's just staring. Her mouth moves, but I can't hear the words. And then she screams. A scream so sharp it cuts through my bones." He woke up with scratches on his arm. Over the next few days, Kevin's life unraveled. Customers who came to the shop complained of headaches. One woman fainted after standing too close to the box. Every time Kevin tried to sell it, something went wrong. Phones would die or the internet connection would crash. Then, one morning, Kevin opened the box. Inside, he found a lock of blonde hair tied with a cord, a small stone with Hebrew carvings, 2 old pennies, and a golden wine goblet. The objects themselves were not terrifying. But the second the box was opened, the atmosphere of the shop changed. The air felt heavier, colder, and Kevin swore he heard someone whisper his name. That night he stayed awake. Every sound in his house felt wrong. The wooden floor creaked even when he wasn't walking on it. A shadow moved across the wall, but nothing was there. At exactly 3 a.m., Kevin heard 3 knocks on his bedroom door. He was alone. The Dybbuk Box wasn't just a haunted object. It was alive. And it wanted to be noticed. Kevin began keeping a journal. He wrote about the nightmares, always the same woman, always the same scream. He wrote about the cold spots in his shop, the smell of rotten flowers, and the sound of glass breaking when nothing had fallen. One night, he brought the box into his living room, hoping to talk to it, like a paranormal investigator might. He lit a candle and sat in silence. For a long time, nothing happened. Then, the candle's flame bent sideways, not like a draft, but as if something was breathing right next to it. Kevin asked out loud, "Who are you?" The flame flickered violently. The box creaked, and Kevin swore he heard the faintest voice. A whisper. "Mine." He slammed the box shut. But something inside him told him it was too late. The following days were worse. Kevin's hair started falling out in clumps. His health deteriorated. He called his sister to stay with him, but the moment she entered the shop, she ran out, saying she couldn't breathe near the box. By now, Kevin knew it wasn't just a story. The Dybbuk was real, and it was awake. On the 7th night, Kevin had another dream. The woman stood closer this time. Her face was cracked like porcelain. Blood dripped from her mouth, and this time he heard the words she whispered, "You open the door. Now you belong to me." He woke up screaming. Kevin decided to get rid of the box, but selling it would not be easy. He tried giving it away, but everyone who touched it felt sick. His own mother suffered a stroke the day she visited his shop, and Kevin blamed the box. What he didn't know was that once you invite the Dybbuk into your life, it doesn't just leave when you want it to. It clings. It feeds. It waits. That's how the story of the Dybbuk Box truly began, with a simple act of curiosity. A man buying a wooden box at an auction and unknowingly opening the door to something ancient, something angry. The morning after Kevin opened the Dybbuk Box, his shop felt different. The sunlight that usually poured through the front windows seemed dull, like a thick veil of dust hung in the air. The air smelled faintly metallic, the way blood smells when it dries. Kevin told himself he was imagining it. But deep down, he knew something had shifted. It started with the clocks. The old clock above the register had stopped at 3:03 a.m. Kevin tried replacing the batteries, but the hands refused to move. Later, his wall clock at home stopped at the exact same time. When he checked his phone, the screen glitched for a second, flickering between 3:03 and the correct time. He shrugged it off, thinking maybe it was just coincidence. But then the dreams came back. The second night, Kevin dreamed of the same woman, her black, hollow eyes staring from the corner of the room. Her lips moved, whispering in Hebrew, a language Kevin didn't understand. But he didn't need a translation. The tone of her voice was pure malice. When he woke, the sheets on his bed were soaked with sweat, and there were deep scratches on his forearm, as if someone had clawed him while he slept. The next morning, he decided to call the auction house. He needed answers. The man who answered spoke in a hushed, uneasy tone. "That box," the auctioneer said, "belonged to a Holocaust survivor named Havila. She brought it from Poland after the war. She always said a dark spirit lived inside it. A Dybbuk." Kevin froze. "Why would she keep it?" he asked. "She believed it could never be destroyed," the auctioneer replied. "She wanted it buried with her, but the family wouldn't allow it. So, it ended up here. I warned you not to buy it." Kevin hung up, heart pounding. He tried convincing himself that it was just a story, old folklore, but every fiber of his being told him the box was not normal, and it wasn't going to stay quiet. That night, he brought the box into his shop's basement. He set it on a metal shelf and locked the door, hoping to keep whatever energy it had contained. But the basement didn't stay silent. At 2:58 a.m., Kevin woke to the sound of heavy footsteps above his apartment. The problem? He lived alone. He grabbed a flashlight and crept downstairs, his breath trembling. The front door was still locked, but the sound was coming from the basement. Wood creaking. Something moving down there. With shaking hands, Kevin turned the basement doorknob. It felt ice cold. as if it had been sitting in a freezer. The moment the door opened, the smell of ammonia hit him so strongly he gagged. The light bulb in the basement flickered wildly, then went dark. Kevin froze at the top of the stairs. In the blackness below, something moved. Something. Breathing. He backed away, slamming the door shut. But just before the door clicked, he swore he heard a whisper, faint, broken, like it came from behind the box itself. Kevin. From that night on, things escalated. Objects in the shop shifted when no one was around. A small mirror near the register cracked down the middle without being touched. Customers complained of headaches and nausea when they lingered too close to the basement door. Kevin told his friend Mark about the box. Mark laughed. "You're letting a stupid antique mess with your head," he said. "Bring it over, I'll take a look at it." Kevin hesitated, but part of him wanted someone else to feel what he felt, just to prove he wasn't going insane. So, he brought the Dybbuk box to Mark's apartment. Mark set it on his kitchen table and smirked. This is what's haunting you. It's just a box, man." He ran his hand over the lid. The wood was dry and cold, like touching something dead. Mark tried to open it. "Don't," Kevin said sharply. "Don't open it again." Mark rolled his eyes. "Fine, but if this thing is so cursed, why not burn it?" Kevin hesitated, because deep down he knew the answer. You don't destroy something like this. If you try, it might destroy you instead. That night, Mark called Kevin, his voice trembling. I think something's wrong. I can't sleep. I keep hearing something in the hallway, like footsteps. I don't know what's happening." Kevin's blood ran cold. It wasn't just him. The Dybbuk was spreading. The next day, Kevin retrieved the box from Mark's place. Mark looked pale, his eyes hollow as if he hadn't slept in days. "Get it out of here," Mark whispered. "Just get rid of it." But that was the problem. No matter how hard Kevin tried, the box always seemed to find its way back. He tried selling it to a pawn shop. The shop's lights went out the moment the owner touched the box. He left it on the curb one night only to find it sitting at his front door the next morning. Then came the night of the screams. Kevin was locking up his shop around midnight. The streets were empty. The air was still. And then, from inside the basement, he heard it. A blood-curdling scream, high-pitched, inhuman. It sounded like someone being burned alive. He froze, every hair on his body standing on end. The scream was followed by 3 heavy knocks against the basement wall. Kevin didn't go downstairs. He couldn't. Instead, he called a rabbi the next morning, desperate for help. The rabbi agreed to meet him and examine the box. The moment the rabbi laid eyes on it, his face turned pale. "You should not have this," he said quietly. "Whatever is inside, it is not of God." The rabbi performed a quick blessing. But during the prayer, the lights above them exploded, bulbs shattering one after another. The rabbi stopped immediately. His hands were shaking. "This is not something I can handle," he whispered. "You must lock it away. Do not open it again. Ever." Kevin followed the advice. He placed the Dybbuk box in a locked cabinet at the back of his shop. He even sealed the cabinet with tape, just to make sure. But that night, the tape was ripped. The cabinet door was open, and the box was sitting on the counter. Kevin realized something terrifying. The Dybbuk didn't just want to be hidden. It wanted attention. It wanted to be feared. By now, Kevin had stopped sleeping. He couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, the woman appeared in his dreams, closer and closer, whispering words he didn't understand. Sometimes she would scream so loudly in his dreams that Kevin woke with blood trickling from his ears. He knew he had to do something drastic. But what? Destroying the box might unleash whatever was inside. Keeping it meant slowly losing his mind. The Dybbuk box had become a part of his life, a parasite feeding on his fear, and Kevin had no idea how to get rid of it. Kevin barely recognized himself in the mirror anymore. Dark circles bloomed under his eyes like bruises. His skin looked pale, stretched too thin, and every time he stared at his reflection, he swore he saw someone else's shadow behind him. He tried to distract himself. He played music in the shop during the day. He avoided going into the basement. He told himself that maybe, just maybe, this was all in his head. But then came the whispers. They started faint, almost like the hum of a distant radio. Kevin would be sweeping the shop floor when he'd hear it. A soft voice saying his name. Kevin. Sometimes it was a woman's voice. Sometimes it was something else. Something lower, rasping, like someone speaking with a throat full of broken glass. The whispers grew bolder at night. Kevin would lie in bed staring at the ceiling and hear them coming from the walls, from the vents, from the box, always the same word, over and over. Mine. One night, the whispers didn't stop. They rose into laughter, cruel, hollow laughter that filled the entire apartment. Kevin covered his ears and screamed, but the laughter grew louder. It felt like it was coming from inside his head. By 3 a.m., he was pacing his living room, hands trembling. He grabbed the Dybbuk box from the cabinet, slammed it onto the table, and shouted, "What do you want from me?" Silence. Then, a low, rasping breath, and a whisper. Blood. Kevin stumbled backward, knocking over a lamp. The room went dark. In the blackness, he thought he saw movement, a shadow crawling across the wall, long and twisted like a spider. The shadow paused, its head tilting toward him, and then, as if mocking him, it melted back into the darkness. Kevin knew he couldn't handle this alone anymore. He needed help. Real help. The next morning, he called a local paranormal group. They were skeptical at first, but when he mentioned the Dybbuk box, their tone changed. They had heard of it. They'd read stories about how it ruined lives, even caused deaths. They agreed to visit the shop that night. 3 investigators arrived just after sunset, 2 men and a woman. They brought cameras, EMF readers, and small digital recorders. Kevin tried to act calm as he showed them the box. But the moment they entered the shop, the woman, Claire, stopped. "I don't like this energy," she said softly. Her face was pale. "It feels heavy here. Wrong." They set up their equipment, placing one recorder directly next to the Dybbuk box. For 30 minutes, nothing happened. The men joked that maybe it was just a good story after all. But Claire remained silent, her eyes fixed on the box. Then, without warning, every EMF reader began to spike. The lights overhead flickered, and the digital recorder captured something none of them could explain. It was a voice, a faint, guttural whisper. "Open it." Claire backed away immediately. "Don't touch it," she said. But one of the men, Mike, reached out instinctively, as if the voice had called to him. "Maybe it's just—" The moment his fingers brushed the wood, Mike screamed. He yanked his hand back, eyes wide. His palm was burned, red welts forming in the shape of strange, twisted lines. Kevin's stomach dropped. The Dybbuk wasn't just playing games anymore. It was warning them. That night, after the investigators left, Kevin sat alone with the box. He considered throwing it into the river, burying it deep where no one would ever find it. But he remembered what the rabbi said. Do not try to destroy it. Do not tempt it. Instead, Kevin tried something else. He researched Dybbuks, reading everything he could find. Old Jewish texts described them as malicious spirits, souls that had been torn from their bodies, seeking a new home. They were dangerous because they clung to the living, feeding off fear and pain. And once you made contact with one, it didn't just leave. Kevin wondered if the woman in his dreams was the Dybbuk's former host. Her cracked face, her hollow stare. Was she warning him, or was she trying to lure him deeper into the curse? The next few nights blurred together. Kevin stopped keeping track of time. He barely slept. When he did, the dreams were worse than ever. One dream stuck with him. He was standing in a field of ash. The Dybbuk box sat on a pedestal in front of him, glowing faintly in the dark. When he reached out to touch it, the woman appeared. Her face was closer than ever, her mouth inches from his ear. She whispered, "You can't escape me." Then, her hands, cold and skeletal, wrapped around his neck. Kevin woke, gasping for air. He was in his bed, but there were bruises on his throat. It was then that Kevin realized the truth. The box wasn't just haunted, it was hunting him. Desperate, Kevin called the rabbi again. The rabbi refused to come back, saying, "I told you this is not for me to handle. It is old, older than anything I know." The rabbi gave him one final warning. "If you keep it, it will take everything from you. Your mind, your life, your soul." Kevin stared at the box for hours after that call. He could feel it watching him. It was just a box, wood and hinges, and yet it was alive. That night, Kevin heard something new. Not just whispers, a sound like nails dragging across the floor. Slow, deliberate. It came from the basement. Kevin grabbed a flashlight and crept down the stairs. The smell of ammonia hit him like a wall. And then he saw it. The box was open, even though he had locked it. Inside, the objects were moving, shifting as if invisible hands were rearranging them. Kevin dropped the flashlight. The light rolled across the floor, casting long shadows on the wall. And in those shadows, something moved. A figure. Tall, thin. Its head tilted unnaturally, like its neck was broken. Its shadowy hand reached out toward him. Kevin bolted up the stairs, slamming the door behind him. His heart felt like it would tear out of his chest. That was the moment he knew. The Dybbuk box was no longer just a cursed object. It was a doorway. Something on the other side wanted to come through. And Kevin was running out of time. Kevin did not sleep that night. He sat in his living room with every light turned on, his back pressed against the couch, staring at the locked basement door. Every creak of the wood floor, every hum of the refrigerator made him jump. He kept asking himself the same question. Why didn't I just leave it at the shop? But the truth was, deep down, he already knew. The box would not let him go. At 3:10 a.m., the whispers began again. Not from the walls this time, from the air around him, from the space behind his ears, just out of reach. "Kevin." The voice was drawn out, soft, yet heavy with something vile. Kevin grabbed his phone and called Claire, the investigator who seemed to understand the darkness better than anyone else. To his relief, she answered, her voice groggy. "Kevin, it's the middle of the night." "It's happening again," he said, barely able to breathe. "I think it's trying to come out." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, Claire's voice, quieter now. "Don't touch the box. Don't even go near it. I'll be there in the morning." Kevin hung up and waited. But the box had other plans. The basement door rattled, softly at first, like a gentle knock. Then louder, a scraping sound like claws against the wood. Kevin backed away, his heart pounding in his throat. The door stopped moving. Silence. He almost convinced himself he had imagined it. Then came the laughter, low, distorted, as if a broken record was playing somewhere beneath his feet. Kevin covered his ears, but it didn't help. The laughter wasn't just sound, it was inside his head. And then between the bursts of laughter, a whisper slithered through. "Let me out." He ran to his bedroom, slammed the door, and locked it. He sat in the corner, rocking slightly, staring at the shadows stretching across his floor. Every shape looked like hands reaching for him. When morning came, Kevin felt like he hadn't slept in weeks. His hands trembled as he opened the door for Claire. She looked different in the daylight. Serious, pale, almost fearful. She walked in with a small black case, setting it on the table. "Where is it?" she asked. Kevin pointed to the basement. "Down there. I locked it." Claire gave a slow nod. "Let's see what we're dealing with." The moment they opened the basement door, a rush of cold air hit them, sharp and biting like winter wind. Claire stopped halfway down the stairs. "It's angry," she murmured. Kevin swallowed hard. "Angry? At what?" "At you," she said without looking back. "For waking it up." When they reached the bottom, the Dybbuk box sat in the center of the floor, perfectly still. But the air around it felt wrong, thick and heavy, like the space itself was bending. Claire set her case down and pulled out a small piece of white chalk. She began drawing a circle around the box, whispering words Kevin didn't understand. The language sounded ancient, full of harsh consonants and strange breaths. Kevin crouched beside her. "Will that stop it?" She shook her head. "This will only hold it for a short time, but I need to see if it will speak." She placed a small digital recorder in the center of the circle. Then she looked at Kevin. "Whatever happens, do not cross the line, no matter what you hear." Claire closed her eyes and began chanting softly. The air grew colder. The lights above flickered. And then, from the box, came a low creaking sound, like the wood itself was breathing. Kevin felt the hair on his arms stand on end. The box shifted slightly. A soft whisper escaped, but it was not Claire's voice. It was something older, something angry. "Who disturbs me?" the voice hissed. Claire didn't open her eyes. "You don't belong here. You will not harm this man." The box rattled violently. "He opened the door. He belongs to me now." Kevin stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a box of tools. His breathing grew shallow. "Claire, I think it knows me. I think it wants me." Claire's voice was firm. "Do not answer it. That's how it gets stronger. Do not speak your name." But it was too late. The box whispered slowly, with cruel clarity. "Kevin." The lights went out. The basement was plunged into darkness. Kevin felt something cold brush against his arm, like fingers made of smoke. He froze. Claire struck a match, the sudden flare of light breaking the dark. Her eyes were wide, but her voice stayed calm. "It's testing you. It feeds on fear. Don't give it what it wants." She pulled something else from her case, small glass vials filled with salt and oil. She sprinkled them around the box, chanting louder now. The whispers rose in anger. The box rattled, its lid straining against the hinges as if something inside wanted out. Then, silence. Claire sighed, wiping sweat from her forehead. "I've given you a few days, but that's all. This thing is too strong to be contained for long. We need a permanent solution." Kevin swallowed hard. "What do you mean, permanent?" She looked at him, her eyes dark. "We need to send it back, seal it forever. But to do that, I need to know what it really is." Kevin didn't like the sound of that. But before he could speak, a sudden crash came from upstairs. Something heavy had fallen, shaking the floorboards. Claire grabbed Kevin's arm. "It's not just in the box anymore," she whispered. "Once it's awake, it spreads. It's everywhere." They ran upstairs. In the living room, every picture frame had fallen from the walls. The glass was shattered. And in the middle of the floor, written in the shards, was a single word. "Mine." Kevin felt the blood drain from his face. He turned to Claire, but she looked just as shaken. "We have to move fast," she said, "before it takes more than just your home." That night, they didn't sleep. Claire stayed in the apartment with him, guarding the box. But Kevin knew that this was only the beginning. The Dybbuk was awake now, and it wasn't going back quietly. Kevin couldn't stop shaking. Even with Claire sitting across from him, her eyes scanning every shadow, he felt as though something unseen was moving around them. The Dybbuk box sat on the table between them, silent, but alive. Every time Kevin looked at it, he felt a pressure behind his eyes, like something was pushing into his thoughts. He tried not to look directly at it, but it was impossible. It felt like it was staring back. Claire broke the silence. "We need to know its name." Kevin blinked. "Name?" "Yes," she said, leaning forward. "Spirits like this. If you know their true name, you can control them, or at least banish them. But without that, we're just trying to hold back a storm with our bare hands." Kevin didn't like the sound of that. "How do we find its name?" Claire glanced toward the box. "We ask it." Kevin froze. "Ask it? Are you insane?" Her voice stayed calm. "It's the only way. But I won't let you speak to it. It wants you too much already. It'll try to trick you." That night, Claire prepared for the ritual. She set candles around the table in a wide circle, their flickering light casting long shadows on the walls. The Dybbuk box sat in the center of the circle, surrounded by lines of salt. Kevin sat on the couch, watching nervously. The air felt heavy again, thick like syrup. Every breath felt harder than the last. Claire began to chant in Hebrew, her voice low but steady. The box trembled slightly. Kevin felt a chill run down his spine. Then, without warning, every candle went out. Darkness. Complete, suffocating darkness. Kevin's heartbeat roared in his ears. He grabbed his phone for light, but before he could turn it on, a voice slithered through the black. "Kevin!" He froze. The voice was behind him. Right behind him. Slowly, he turned his head. Nothing. Only blackness. Then, from across the room, Claire's voice rang out sharply. "Do not respond to it!" Her tone was commanding, like she was talking to a child holding a loaded gun. "Stay silent, no matter what you hear." Kevin clenched his jaw. The whisper came again, softer now, almost pleading. "Kevin, help me. It hurts." His blood turned cold. It sounded like his mother's voice, but that was impossible. He shut his eyes. "It's lying. It's lying." The candles flared back to life all at once. Claire's face was pale, her eyes fixed on the box. She spoke, her voice strong. "Tell me your name." For a long moment there was only silence. Then the box creaked, and a voice, lower than before, growled from inside. "Azarel." Kevin shuddered. The name tasted like metal in the air. Wrong. Heavy. Claire nodded. "Azarel. That is your name." The box rattled violently, as if the spirit inside was furious that she had repeated it. Claire turned to Kevin. "We have what we need, but we need to work fast. This thing is stronger than I thought." Before Kevin could reply, the front window shattered. Glass flew across the room, scattering like knives. Something had slammed into it, hard. Kevin ducked, his heart racing. "What the hell was that?" Claire grabbed her bag. "It's trying to scare us. Don't look outside." Kevin, of course, looked anyway. Through the broken window he saw the street. Empty. Completely empty. But standing under the flickering streetlight was a shape. A tall, thin figure, its head bent at an unnatural angle. Kevin blinked. It wasn't there anymore. He backed away, trembling. "Claire, I think it's outside." She didn't answer. She was busy sealing the box with strips of black cloth, chanting under her breath. The box thudded, as if something inside was pounding to get out. Kevin's phone buzzed on the table. He looked down. The screen lit up with a single message. From unknown. "Let me in." Kevin dropped the phone like it was burning his skin. "This is insane," he muttered. "Claire, we need to get rid of it. Just throw it in the river." Claire spun on him. "No! Destroying it will only release what's inside. You have to trust me." Suddenly, every light in the apartment exploded, bulbs shattering with sharp cracks. The room plunged into darkness again, but this time Kevin didn't need to see to know he wasn't alone. There were footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the kitchen. Claire grabbed his arm. "Don't move." But Kevin couldn't help it. He turned his head just enough to see something emerging from the hallway. A shadow. It was darker than the dark around it, its form twisting as it moved closer. Two glowing eyes, dull, white, almost lifeless, fixed on him. Kevin's breath caught in his throat. The shadow tilted its head. Then it spoke. "Mine." Claire shouted words Kevin didn't understand, her voice shaking the air. The shadow recoiled, its form flickering like smoke. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it vanished. Kevin fell to his knees, gasping. "I can't do this," he said. "I can't stay here anymore. I need to get out." Claire knelt beside him. "You can't run from it, Kevin. It will follow you, no matter where you go." Kevin stared at her, wide-eyed. "What are you saying?" She placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm saying, if we don't seal this thing now, it won't just take you. It will take everything." Kevin swallowed hard. "Then tell me what to do." Claire looked at him, her expression grim. "We need to find the place it came from. The place where its name still has power. That's the only way to trap it again." Kevin nodded slowly, though fear still gripped every part of him. "How long do we have?" Claire glanced at the box. The wood was splintering, tiny cracks forming around the edges. "Not long," she said. "Maybe a few days, maybe less." That night Kevin didn't close his eyes once. He could hear the box shifting on its own, even though Claire had sealed it. Every so often it whispered his name. Not loud, just enough to let him know it wasn't finished with him. And Kevin knew. This wasn't a fight he could ignore. The Dybbuk had chosen him. The next morning, Kevin's apartment looked like the aftermath of a war. Shards of glass crunched under his shoes as he walked from the kitchen to the living room. The Dybbuk box sat on the table, still wrapped in the black cloth Claire had used, but it pulsed faintly, as if something inside was breathing. Claire stood by the window, her arms crossed, staring out at the street. She hadn't slept either. Her face was pale, but her eyes were sharp, like she had already made up her mind about what had to happen next. Kevin broke the silence. "Where do we go from here?" Claire turned, her gaze heavy. "We need to find where this thing came from, the place where it was first bound. That's where its power can be contained." Kevin frowned. "Where is that exactly?" She walked over to her bag and pulled out a weathered leather journal. It looked ancient, its cover cracked and darkened with age. "This belonged to a rabbi," she explained. "Someone who dealt with the spirit inside this box over 100 years ago. He sealed it once, but the seal is weak now. And you—" She stopped, her eyes meeting his. "You woke it up." Kevin felt his stomach twist. "Woke it up? I just bought it. I didn't do anything." Claire shook her head. "Sometimes, just touching an object like this is enough. It chooses who it wants. And Kevin, it has chosen you." He didn't know whether to scream or laugh. Instead, he sat down and buried his face in his hands. "This is insane. You're saying I'm... what? Cursed?" Claire's voice softened. "No, not cursed. Claimed. But we can still fight it. We have to. She opened the journal and laid it on the table. The pages were covered with strange markings and handwritten notes in Hebrew. She tapped one page with her finger. "This is where we're going. A small town outside New Orleans. There's an abandoned synagogue there, burned down decades ago. That's where the first sealing took place." Kevin hesitated. "You mean we have to take it there? Drive with this thing in the car?" "Yes," she said simply. "If we don't, it will just grow stronger. And then—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Kevin sighed, rubbing his temples. "I hate this, but fine. Let's do it. The sooner this is over, the better." By noon, they had packed everything they needed. Candles, salt, chalk for sigils. The Dybbuk box sat inside a reinforced wooden crate, tied down with thick ropes and sealed with more layers of black cloth. Before leaving, Claire placed a thin strip of parchment with Hebrew words across the top of the crate. "It won't hold forever," she said, "but it will keep it quiet for the trip." Kevin eyed the crate nervously. "Quiet? That thing whispers in my head, Claire. I doubt it even knows what quiet means." She gave him a small, humorless smile. "Then don't listen." The drive started off tense, but uneventful. The highway stretched ahead of them, empty and gray. Kevin kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something sitting in the back seat. For the first few hours, there was nothing. Just the low hum of the tires on the asphalt and the sound of Claire flipping through the journal. She muttered to herself sometimes, tracing the strange symbols with her finger. Then, as the sun began to set, Kevin felt the temperature drop inside the car. He checked the air conditioning, off. Yet the chill was undeniable. Claire noticed it too. She closed the journal and looked at him. "It's awake." Kevin gripped the wheel tighter. "Can't you, I don't know, make it go back to sleep?" She shook her head. "Not out here. Not while we're driving." The radio suddenly crackled, though it had been turned off the whole time. A faint, static-filled voice whispered through the speakers. Kevin's blood ran cold. It said his name. "Turn it off!" he shouted. "I did turn it off!" Claire snapped. Her eyes were locked on the crate. "It's testing you. Don't answer." The voice grew louder, echoing inside his head now. "Kevin, you can't run from me. You belong to me." He gritted his teeth. "Shut up," he muttered. "Shut up, shut up, shut up." The car jerked suddenly to the left as if something had grabbed the steering wheel. Kevin fought it, swerving back onto the road. "What the hell was that?" Claire's hand shot out to steady the crate in the back seat. "It's trying to stop us. Keep driving, no matter what." The sky darkened quickly. Storm clouds rolled in out of nowhere, and rain began to hammer against the windshield. Kevin could barely see the road. The wipers screeched, but it didn't matter. Claire whispered something under her breath, a prayer or a chant. Kevin wasn't sure. But the whispering in his head softened, just slightly. Hours passed, the tension inside the car as heavy as the storm outside. Kevin's eyes burned from staring at the road, but he didn't dare relax. Every so often, he saw something move in the reflection of the windshield. A dark shape. Sitting in the back seat. He didn't tell Claire. If he said it out loud, it would become too real. By the time they reached the outskirts of New Orleans, it was close to midnight. The rain had stopped, but a thick fog rolled over the streets. Every streetlight they passed flickered as they drove by, like the city itself knew what they were carrying. Kevin parked in front of an old cemetery. Claire checked the map and pointed beyond it. "The synagogue is on the other side. We have to go through here." Kevin groaned. "Of course we do. Why wouldn't we have to carry a cursed box through a graveyard at midnight?" Claire ignored him. She opened the trunk, revealing the crate. The black cloth covering it was damp, as if the box itself was sweating. Together, they lifted it. The weight was unnatural, heavier than it should have been, like it wanted to sink into the earth. The cemetery was silent except for the sound of their footsteps on wet gravel. Kevin's breath came in sharp bursts, each one visible in the cold air. Then, a laugh, soft, childlike. It came from somewhere among the gravestones. Kevin froze. "Did you hear that?" Claire didn't stop walking. "Yes, keep moving." But the laugh came again, closer, followed by a whisper. "Kevin," he almost dropped his side of the crate. "That's it. I'm done. I'm leaving this thing right here." Claire's voice cut through his panic like a blade. "If you do that, you'll never be free. Do you understand? Never." Kevin swallowed hard and kept walking. The whispers grew louder with every step. It felt like the entire cemetery was alive, watching, waiting. Finally, they reached the burned-out synagogue. It was nothing more than a blackened shell, its walls covered in vines and ash. But as soon as Kevin stepped inside, the whispers stopped. The silence was worse. Claire set the crate on the cracked stone floor. "This is where we end it," she said, her voice trembling only slightly. "But you have to be strong. It will fight back harder than ever now." Kevin stared at the box. Its presence seemed to fill the room, pressing down on him like a weight on his chest. He nodded slowly. "Let's finish this." The burned-out synagogue felt colder than the night air outside. Kevin's breath turned to mist as he exhaled, his chest tight, as though invisible hands were squeezing his lungs. The Dybbuk box sat in the center of the floor, the black cloth stripped away. Its surface was slick, as if it was sweating. Symbols carved into the wood seemed to crawl under the candlelight, warping and twisting like living scars. Claire set down her satchel and began unpacking the ritual tools. Long white candles, a bag of salt, a piece of chalk worn to a nub, and a book so old it looked like it would crumble with a single wrong touch. Kevin crouched beside her, still staring at the box. "You've done this before?" he asked quietly. "Not this," she admitted. "Nothing this powerful. But I've studied what needs to be done." That answer did not calm him. "If you're wrong—" "I'm not wrong," she cut him off, her voice firm. "If I were, we'd already be dead." She drew a circle of salt around them, then began sketching strange symbols on the cracked stone floor. Kevin watched, trying not to flinch every time the box emitted a faint clicking sound, like wood splintering. It sounded hungry. "Why here?" Kevin asked. "Why does it have to be done in this place?" Claire paused, chalk in hand. "Because this is where it was first bound. The spirit inside this box, it was once human, twisted by anger and betrayal. The rabbi who sealed it here gave his life to trap it. His blood is still in these stones. We're standing on a battlefield." Kevin swallowed hard. A battlefield. That was exactly what it felt like. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound echoed like a threat. Claire handed him one of the candles. "Place these at the edge of the circle, north, south, east, and west. Don't step outside the salt once you light them." Kevin hesitated, but did as he was told. When the fourth candle flickered to life, the entire room seemed to shrink. The darkness between the walls thickened, like tar pressing against the circle. Then the box groaned. Wood shouldn't make that sound, like something breathing and crying all at once. Kevin stumbled back. "Claire, oh, it's moving." "I know," she said calmly, though her hands trembled as she opened the old book. "That means it's aware of us, of what we're trying to do." She began to chant. Her voice was low, rhythmic, weaving ancient words that Kevin couldn't understand but could feel in his bones. The candles flickered violently, their flames leaning toward the box as though pulled by an unseen current. The Dybbuk box rattled, slowly at first, then violently, like something inside was clawing to get out. Kevin clutched his knees. "Are you sure this is working?" "Don't talk," she snapped. "Just focus. Whatever happens, don't break the circle." The rattling stopped suddenly. The silence that followed was worse than any noise. Kevin's ears rang in the stillness. Then, a whisper, faint at first, so soft he thought he imagined it. Then louder. "Kevin!" He froze. It was his name. The voice came from the box, unmistakable, and it wasn't a stranger's voice. It was his mother's. His heart pounded. "Claire, I—" "Don't listen," she said sharply, not looking up from her chant. "It's lying." The voice grew clearer. "Kevin, open the box. It's me. It's Mom. I'm trapped. Help me, sweetheart." Kevin's hands shook. The voice sounded exactly like her, every tone, every warmth in the syllables. But his mother was alive. He had spoken to her 2 days ago. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. "Don't look at it," Claire shouted suddenly. He hadn't realized he'd been leaning forward. The voice was like a hook in his mind, dragging him closer. He shut his eyes, forcing himself back. "Make it stop," he whispered. "Please, make it stop." Claire's chanting grew louder. The air around them vibrated, and the floor beneath them seemed to hum. The box let out a long, guttural creak, then a scream. Kevin slapped his hands over his ears, but it didn't help. The scream wasn't outside, it was inside his head. It was pure hate, burning through every nerve like fire. Suddenly, one of the candles blew out. The darkness surged into the gap like water flooding a crack. Kevin panicked. "The circle!" "Stay put!" Claire shouted, scrambling to relight it. But the darkness moved faster than her hands. It rose like a shape, a tall, crooked silhouette at the edge of the salt. Kevin's breath caught. It wasn't just darkness. It was a figure. A woman. Her face was nothing but a hollow blur, her eyes pits of writhing shadow. Her mouth opened, stretching impossibly wide, and a voice like 100 whispers hissed, "You can't take me back." Kevin's legs locked. Claire slammed the candle down, reigniting the flame. The figure shrieked and dissolved, melting back into the shadows. Claire's voice trembled as she chanted again, faster, louder. Sweat ran down her face. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the book. Kevin looked at the box. The wood was splitting now. Tiny cracks crawled across its surface like veins. Something inside was trying to break free. "I can't hold it much longer," Claire shouted. "Get the rope. Tie it down." Kevin grabbed the coarse rope and wound it around the box, pulling it tight. Each time he touched it, a jolt of heat shot up his arms, like touching burning metal. But he didn't stop. The box bucked violently, knocking over one of the candles. Flames licked across the floor. Kevin swore and stomped them out before they crossed the salt. Claire's chant hit a crescendo. She shouted the final word like a command, and the whole building seemed to shake. The box let out one last scream, high, piercing, animal, and then silence. Kevin collapsed onto his knees, gasping. Claire lowered the book slowly, her face pale but resolute. "It's bound. For now." Kevin stared at her. "For now? What does that mean?" She glanced at the box, now still but smoking faintly. "It means we've won a battle. Not the war. There's one more step." He swallowed hard. "And what's that?" Claire looked at him with a strange intensity. "We have to bury it. Not just anywhere. Somewhere it can't be found, because if someone opens it again—" Her voice trailed off. Kevin didn't need her to finish. He could still hear the echo of the scream in his head. The Dybbuk box lay silent in the crate. It no longer pulsed or whispered, but its stillness was worse, unnatural, like a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Kevin stared at it, sweat still clinging to his skin. "Bury it," he muttered under his breath. "Let's just bury it and be done." Claire nodded, though her eyes stayed fixed on the cracked wood. "I know a place," she said quietly. "An old cemetery outside Baton Rouge. It's hidden, off the maps. No one visits it anymore. That's where we'll leave it." Kevin didn't ask how she knew about the cemetery. At this point, he didn't care. He just wanted this nightmare gone. They loaded the crate back into the trunk of Kevin's car. The weight felt worse than before, like the box had grown heavier. Every lift of it made Kevin's muscles ache, as if it was stealing his strength. The night air outside the burned synagogue was colder than it should have been. The trees nearby swayed without wind. Kevin tried not to look back at the ruins as they left, but he swore he saw something move in the blackened windows. The highway stretched out in front of them again, long, empty, endless. For the first hour, neither of them spoke. Kevin's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Claire sat with the old journal open on her lap, flipping pages with silent urgency. But the silence didn't last. At the 2-hour mark, the radio crackled to life again. Static. Then a voice. Not his mother this time. A child's voice. "Kevin, are we there yet?" His blood ran cold. He glanced at Claire, but she was already glaring at the crate in the back. "It's trying to play with you. Ignore it." The voice giggled. "Don't ignore me, Kevin. I can see you. I can feel you." Kevin turned the radio dial frantically, but the voice didn't stop. It didn't even change volume. It was inside the car now, as if coming from every direction. He gritted his teeth. "Claire, I swear to God, I can't keep doing this." "Yes, you can," she said sharply. "Don't let it win. If you talk back, if you engage, it'll grow stronger. Just keep driving." Kevin clenched his jaw and focused on the road, but the voice kept whispering, taunting, laughing. By the 3rd hour, he was shaking. Then the headlights flickered. Once, twice, then they went out completely. The car plunged into darkness. Kevin slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching on wet asphalt. "Not now," he shouted. "Don't stop," Claire said urgently. "It wants us stranded. Keep moving." "Without headlights? Are you insane?" She leaned forward, eyes wide. "Kevin, just drive." His hands trembled as he started rolling forward again, barely seeing the road through the pale glow of the dashboard. The fog outside had thickened, curling like ghostly fingers across the highway. It swallowed everything: trees, signs, the horizon. Then he saw it, a figure, standing in the middle of the road. Kevin slammed the brakes again, heart pounding. The car skidded to a stop just feet from it. A woman in a torn white dress. Her head tilted at an unnatural angle. Her face blurred, like someone had smeared it out of existence. Claire's hand shot out to grab his arm. "Don't look. Don't roll down the window. Just go through it." Kevin stared at her like she was insane. "You want me to drive through a person?" "That's not a person." The figure tilted its head further, the sound of cracking bones echoing faintly. Then it smiled, or at least the suggestion of a smile formed where its face should have been. Kevin slammed the gas pedal. The car roared forward. The figure didn't move. It didn't even flinch as the car passed through it. For a moment, Kevin felt something cold and wet wrap around his chest, like drowning. Then it was gone. Claire's voice was steady but strained. "It knows where we're going. It's trying to stop us." The next hour was worse. The fog grew so thick Kevin could barely see the lines on the road. And the whispers, God, the whispers, never stopped. Sometimes they sounded like children laughing. Sometimes like nails dragging on glass. At one point, the car shook violently as if something huge had landed on the roof. Kevin nearly swerved into a ditch. "What was that?" Claire just kept chanting softly, her voice barely audible. "It's just fear. Don't give it a name." By the time they reached the outskirts of Baton Rouge, Kevin's nerves were frayed. He pulled over near a rusted, broken-down fence. "This is it?" he asked. Claire nodded. Beyond the fence lay a path overgrown with weeds and twisted roots. The air smelled like wet earth and decay, and in the distance Kevin could just make out the crooked silhouettes of gravestones. Together they unloaded the crate. The weight nearly buckled Kevin's knees. The box was humming faintly now, as if sensing what was coming. "Stay inside the salt circle once we dig," Claire warned. "Once the ground is open, it'll fight us harder than ever." They carried shovels and candles into the cemetery. The moonlight barely pierced the clouds above, and the trees looked like skeletal hands reaching for them. Kevin's breath fogged in front of him as he dug into the cold earth. With each scoop of dirt, the whispers grew louder. They weren't just voices now, they were screams. Cries of anger, pain, and hatred all jumbled together. Kevin slammed his shovel down, his hands blistered. "This is insane. What if it doesn't work?" Claire's voice was firm. "It will. It has to." When the hole was deep enough, they lowered the crate inside. The moment it touched the ground, the earth trembled. The wind howled through the trees, and the candles flickered violently. Then the box laughed. A deep, guttural laugh that didn't sound human. Kevin stumbled back, shaking. "It's not going to let us do this." Claire threw salt over the crate and began chanting again, louder this time. The ground around the hole started to crack, black smoke curling up from the soil. Something rose from the shadows behind them. A shape. A figure with long, twisted arms and hollow eyes. The Dybbuk itself. Kevin froze. The thing smiled at him, its teeth impossibly sharp. "Kevin, you can't bury me. You are mine now." The shadow loomed at the edge of the grave. Its form wavered like smoke, but its eyes, black pits rimmed with burning white, locked onto Kevin with a terrible hunger. It grinned, a grin too wide for any human face, as the earth around them trembled. Claire's chant faltered. The book in her hands shook violently, its pages flapping as if caught in a windstorm. She clenched her teeth and raised her voice, forcing the ancient words out in a defiant roar. The Dybbuk tilted its head and laughed. A sound like rusted metal scraping against bone. The laugh slithered inside Kevin's skull, whispering every fear he had ever known. "Kevin," the thing said softly, "you've always been weak, always afraid. Why pretend now?" Kevin stumbled backward, his boot catching on a broken gravestone. His breath came fast, uneven. It wasn't just the words. It was the way the Dybbuk said them, like it knew him. "You can feel it, can't you?" it hissed. "The anger, the doubt, that's all I need. Just one step out of that circle, and I will have you." "Don't listen to it!" Claire's voice cut through the night like a blade. Her hands were bleeding where she clutched the book, but she didn't stop chanting. "Stay with me, Kevin. Stay inside the salt." The Dybbuk's grin widened. Its form began to stretch and twist, bones cracking, limbs lengthening until it towered above them. The shadows of the cemetery bent toward it like slaves. Kevin's knees shook. It felt like the air itself was pressing down on him, thick and suffocating. Every part of him wanted to run, to flee, to give up. Then the voice came again. But this time it wasn't the Dybbuk. "Kevin." He froze. It was his mother's voice again. So soft, so loving. "Sweetheart, I need you. I'm trapped. Please, help me." Kevin's hands trembled. "No, no, you're not real," he whispered, but his voice cracked. The Dybbuk's form shifted. It shrank and bent, and suddenly his mother was standing there, her hair, her smile, even the sweater she always wore. Tears glistened in her eyes. Kevin's breath caught. "Mom?" "Kevin, it hurts," the figure whispered. "Don't let her do this. Don't let Claire bury me. Please. Open the box, just once. You'll free me." "Kevin, don't!" Claire screamed. Her voice was raw with desperation. "That's not your mother. It's wearing her face." The illusion tilted its head, smiling sadly. "Why would I lie to you? You're my son." Kevin's feet moved forward without thinking. One step, two. The salt crunched under his boot. "Kevin!" Claire's shout ripped through the night. She dropped the book and grabbed his arm with all her strength. "Look at me. Right now. Do you want to die? Do you want all of this to mean nothing?" Kevin blinked. The figure's face rippled. For a second, its mouth stretched, teeth sharp like knives. The eyes turned black. He gasped and stumbled back into the circle. The illusion vanished with a hiss, melting back into the Dybbuk's true form. The creature screamed, the sound so shrill that the candles guttered out one by one. Only the moonlight remained, pale and sickly, turning the cemetery into a grave of shadows. Claire grabbed the salt and poured a fresh line at the broken edge of the circle. Then she raised the book again. Her voice was steady now, iron in every word. "Enough. It ends here." The Dybbuk lunged. Its form crashed against the invisible barrier of the salt, sending sparks of dark energy in every direction. Kevin swore he saw faces in those sparks, faces twisted in pain, screaming silently. He grabbed the shovel, heart pounding. "What do I do?" "Hold it back," Claire shouted. "Keep it from reaching the box while I seal it." Kevin's hands shook on the wooden handle. "Hold it back? It's not even solid." The Dybbuk screeched again, slamming a clawed hand into the dirt. The ground cracked, black veins spreading out like lightning. From those cracks, hands began to crawl, rotting, skeletal hands clawing toward them. Kevin swung the shovel with all his strength, smashing the first skeletal hand into dust. Then another, and another. Each blow rattled his bones, but he kept swinging, sweat dripping into his eyes. Claire's voice rose higher, her chant echoing in the still air. The box inside the grave began to glow faintly, a sickly green light seeping from its cracks. The Dybbuk screamed, recoiling like smoke touched by fire. Kevin's arms ached, but he didn't stop. Every time the Dybbuk's shadowy tendrils tried to reach the box, he slammed them back with the shovel, shouting in pure rage, "Stay! Away!" Then the ground shook violently, throwing him off balance. The Dybbuk roared, its form splitting into multiple shadows. Each one hissed and lunged at the circle. "Claire, it's breaking through!" Kevin shouted. "Hold them off! I'm almost there!" Her chant reached a fever pitch, the words spinning through the air like a storm. One shadow leapt at Kevin's chest. For a split second, it felt like ice water rushed into his lungs. He swung blindly, the shovel connecting with something solid, and the shadow dissolved with a hiss. Then, silence. The Dybbuk froze. The air stilled. And the box closed. The glow vanished, the cracks sealing with a final snap. Claire collapsed onto her knees, gasping. "It's done," she whispered. "It's sealed again." Kevin dropped the shovel, his arms trembling. "Are you sure?" A faint whisper rose from the grave. Not words, just breath. A warning. A promise. Claire's face hardened. "We finish this. We bury it. We make sure no one ever finds it again." Kevin nodded, though fear still coiled in his gut. Together, they began shoveling dirt back into the grave, each scoop feeling heavier than the last. But even as they worked, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching them, waiting. The grave was filled. The box was buried deep beneath the cold earth. Yet the silence that followed was not peace. It felt heavy, thick, as if the ground itself held its breath. Kevin stood over the fresh mound of dirt, his chest rising and falling like he had just outrun death itself. Beside him, Claire wiped mud from her trembling hands, her face pale under the moonlight. Neither spoke. For a long moment, they simply stared at the grave, listening. Then the whisper came. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even clear. But it was there, a faint, serpentine hiss that slid across the back of Kevin's neck. "Not over." Kevin spun around, heart pounding. "Did you hear that?" Claire's eyes widened. "Yes, I heard it." The ground trembled, just once, like something had shifted deep beneath the soil. And then it stopped. The night went still. Claire tightened her coat around her shoulders. "We have to leave this place, now." They gathered their tools in silence. The moon hung low, watching them like a silver eye, as they made their way back down the twisting path of the cemetery. Kevin couldn't stop glancing over his shoulder. Every shadow seemed to stretch toward him, like fingers waiting to drag him back. When they reached the rusted gates, Claire stopped. "Kevin, listen to me. We did what we had to do, but the Dybbuk isn't gone. Not really." Kevin swallowed hard. "What are you saying?" "It's sealed, for now, but that thing leaves scars. It marks what it touches." She looked at him with a gaze that was both warning and sorrow. "And you, Kevin, it knows you now?" A chill passed through him that no amount of warm air could erase. He nodded, though a part of him didn't understand, or didn't want to. The next few days passed in a blur. Kevin returned home, but his world felt different. The walls of his apartment seemed to creak louder. His reflection in the mirror looked tired, hollow, as if some part of him had been scraped away. At night, he woke to faint tapping sounds, soft, rhythmic, like fingers drumming on wood. Every time he got up to check, there was nothing. On the third night, he dreamed of the grave. In the dream, the dirt shifted, bubbling like boiling tar, and the Dybbuk's face pushed through the earth with a grin that made his stomach twist. It whispered his name, over and over. "Kevin, Kevin, Kevin." He woke with a scream stuck in his throat, his sheets damp with sweat. The tapping was louder this time. Not on the walls, not on the windows. It was coming from inside the closet. Kevin froze. The sound stopped. Then, 3 knocks. Slow, deliberate. He didn't open the door. He sat there in the dark, his breath coming in ragged gasps until morning light crept through the blinds. When he finally opened the closet, there was nothing but clothes and dust. But on the inside of the door, faint scratches had appeared overnight. 5 deep marks, as if something with claws had been trying to get out. He called Claire. "I think it followed me." Her voice was strained, but steady. "I told you, Kevin. The Dybbuk doesn't let go easily. You need protection, salt lines, symbols, and we might need to perform another ritual." "Another one?" Kevin asked, his throat dry. "I can't go back there, Claire. I can't." "You don't have a choice," she said sharply. "You think it'll stop if you ignore it? No. It'll crawl into your life piece by piece, until there's nothing left of you." Kevin felt sick. He looked around his apartment. Shadows clung to the corners like oil. The air smelled faintly of smoke. Something unseen was breathing in the room with him. That night, things escalated. He was sitting on the couch when the TV turned on by itself. Static filled the screen, hissing like a nest of snakes. Then, beneath the static, he heard a voice. "Let me out, Kevin." His heart stopped. He grabbed the remote and shut it off. The screen went black. But his reflection in the dark glass, it wasn't his face, it was the Dybbuk's grin, staring back at him. Kevin stumbled backward, knocking over a lamp. "No, no, no, no." The lights flickered. A whisper ran across the room. "You buried me alive. I'll bury you." When Claire arrived, Kevin was pacing the living room, wild-eyed and trembling. "We can't wait. We have to finish this. Tonight." She didn't argue. They gathered the tools, salt, candles, the Book of Rites, and returned to the cemetery. The air felt heavier than before, like the entire place was holding a grudge. The mound of earth where they'd buried the box had sunken slightly, as if something beneath had clawed at it from the inside. Kevin's stomach churned. "This was a mistake," he muttered. "We never should have touched that thing." Claire began setting up the circle again. Her hands shook as she lit the candles. "This time, we're not just sealing it," she said. "We're binding it. For good." The ritual began. The air grew colder with every word. Kevin felt a pressure building around them like invisible hands pressing against his chest. Then the ground cracked. A hand shot out of the dirt, black and clawed, fingers longer than any human's. The Dybbuk rose from the earth, not in smoke, but in flesh, twisted, half-formed and grinning. "You can't keep me here," it hissed. "You're mine now." The candles flared, their flames burning blue. Claire screamed the last words of the incantation, her voice raw, defiant. Kevin grabbed the shovel and struck at the creature's hand, sparks of dark energy bursting with each hit. The Dybbuk shrieked, a sound so sharp it felt like it was slicing through bone. Its body began to unravel, threads of shadow peeling away like smoke in the wind. Then, silence. The grave closed on its own. The candles went out. And the night. The night was still. Kevin dropped to his knees. "It's over?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Claire stared at the grave. Her face was pale, but her voice was calm. "For now," she said. "But things like this, they leave a stain." As they walked away, Kevin swore he felt something watching them. Not from the grave, not from the shadows, but from inside himself. The following week, Kevin tried to move on. But the nightmares continued. Sometimes he'd wake up and see muddy footprints leading from his bedroom door to the closet. Other times, he'd hear faint laughter and the static of the TV. One night, while brushing his teeth, he saw something in the mirror. Not behind him, not even beside him, but inside his reflection. A grin that wasn't his. The Dybbuk was gone. But a part of it had stayed.